Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters and viewers of IQRA TV. Welcome to another episode of Real Talk, the program that brings to you on a regular basis issues that affect our community on a day-to-day basis, issues that all of you, and including myself, are interested in what's happening within our community, to the Islamic world, to the Muslim community in general, not just in the UK but other parts of the world as well. And over the last few months, we've brought a number of people here to try and bring to the attention of our viewers some of the issues that confront us, as I say, on a day-to-day basis. Now, this is an informative program. It's almost a current affairs program that looks at a number of factors across a whole range of subjects. Today, I have some very important people with me to talk about something that is really something that has gone out of our memory. This sort of seems to be wiped out. Not many Muslim people, I'm afraid to say, are actually aware of what happened not far away from us, across the pond, as they say, the channel, to our Muslim brothers and sisters during the Bosnian War. So today I want to talk about Remembering Srebrenica, which is a huge initiative, which reminds us that in 1 week the Serbian forces pulled together about 8,300 men and boys and then systematically murdered them. It is recognized as the worst genocide since the Second World War. And we now, thanks to the initiatives of a number of people, particularly the European Parliament, the 11th of July has been declared as a memorial day for the victims of Srebrenica. And that is what I want to talk to you about today. And I have with me two eminent guests who will share with us their memories, their thoughts, their ideas, and what we as Muslim communities and non-Muslims as well who view this program need to do to keep what happened to these people at the forefront of our mind. So can I welcome two eminent people? First of all, can I welcome Brother Riyad, who is from Bosnia, who came to this country during the conflict, and I'm sure had witnessed some of these things, maybe not the Srebrenica sort of a genocide, but other atrocities that were committed to men, women, children, etc. by those evil forces. And also, can I also welcome Javed Bashir, who many people in Bradford will know quite well. He's a prominent citizen of Bradford, works in the field of education, is a lecturer at the university, and does a multiplicity of community work. And he has been at the forefront of many, many initiatives that brings the Muslim community at the forefront of some of the politics that runs around, not just in Yorkshire, but around the country as well. So Brother Riyad, welcome to IQRA TV, welcome to Real Talk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I believe you're local, so you've not had to travel far.
Not far, not. I mean, the same area.
I mean, the other guys, he needs a passport to travel around in Bradford. Javed Bashir, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
It's nice to see you. How are you keeping? You're also, is it chief executive or director of the Muslim Professional Muslims Network or Institute? What is it? Network or is it
Institute?
Institute, yeah. So we'll talk about that in a little while.
Okay.
But Brother Riyad, this atrocity, this massacre, this genocide happened to your brothers and sisters and ours as well. But obviously you firsthand, you being from Bosnia. I mean, that happened, I know, many years ago. And the 11th of July has been declared as the Remembrance Day. Like in this country, we remember the soldiers who lost their lives in the two world wars. Every November, Her Majesty the Queen and I, on behalf of the Majesty of the Queen, lay wreaths in memory of the soldiers who lost their lives and fought for freedom. And the 11th of July is something similar. We remember the brothers and mainly brothers in Bosnia who were massacred on in this 1 week. I mean, how do you sort of still manage to live with that atrocity, because you're close hand to that? I know how long have you been here now?
26 years.
26 years.
In the UK. Yes, it's difficult. Every year it's difficult. This was the biggest massacre of the Bosnian conflict, of over 8,300 men and boys. But there were many others, all over the Bosnia, down to individual, slaughter and killings of innocent people, up to sort of this massive one in Srebrenica in 1995. My first contact with people with from Srebrenica was in a concentration camp in central Bosnia. I myself come from a completely different side of Bosnia, northwestern part, and we were all rounded up and ethnically cleansed from that region a few years earlier, in 1992.
Right.
So we ended up in these camps in central area that was controlled by the Muslims, and it was similar for people of Srebrenica who left their men to defend the city and tried to save their women, children, and pushed them to the safer area in central Bosnia.
This was supposed to be a UN protected zone, wasn't it?
Yes, Srebrenica was, and these areas around central Bosnia in Muslim hands were also supposed to be. So we ended up in this same camp with these mothers of Srebrenica, who we noticed first of all there was just women there, and when we came across it, we said, where are the men, where are the boys? And they said, oh, they're back in Srebrenica, they're defending the town. So every now and again, few of them would come middle of the night, walking from Srebrenica, which was hundreds of miles away.
Right.
You know, with their rucksacks, to come for a bit of rest, to get some food, and then they would just stay for a day or two, and then, get their rucksacks filled with food for their comrades back home, back in Srebrenica, and they would walk through the forests and mountains across, to take food across, and then, they would always say, no, the situation we'll manage, we'll survive, we will fight on, and they would always go back, knowing that this was very, very difficult
It's
situation.
possible that they might not come back.
They were knowing that they would not come back.
And 8,300, as you say.
They
In
didn't.
fact, it's 8,375, I think it is.
73.
Yeah, men and boys were systematically rounded up and murdered and killed. Now, Javed obviously is one of the ambassadors for the initiative called Remember in Srebrenica. And I believe you've been to Bosnia, haven't you?
Yes.
I have seen images of the graves and the bodies have been found. And there was a program in Bradford. You were saying, was it last night? Or
It was on Monday.
It was on Monday, where was it in the town hall?
City Hall, yes.
In City Hall, where you had an event to remember the people from Srebrenica. Now, what does the initiative, the Remember in Srebrenica initiative actually do beyond just having these individual? Every town I believe, is doing something.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank yourself and the IQRA TV for allowing us an opportunity to come here. This week, around the country, in Bradford, in Huddersfield, in York, and everywhere around the country, people are having memorial events where they can mark the 24th anniversary of the genocide which took place in Bosnia, particularly in Srebrenica. So the idea is to learn from the horrors which took place, and how we can build the bridges between different communities. It's good enough to just go to an event and come back and say you learned something, but it's actually the charity promotes more than that. The charity wants is people to go to the Bosnia, come back and they change themselves and change other people as well. Because we run a number of initiatives within schools. We've been running some initiatives within madrasas. On Friday this week, we're having a football tournament where more than 300 young people from different communities.
Is that in Bradford?
That's in Keighley.
In Keighley, okay.
But the children are coming from all over the Bradford as well, from Bradford, and so we decided to hold in Keighley because Keighley is part of Bradford district as well, as you will know. Although some people don't believe in that, but we are part of Bradford district.
Declare UDI.
Oh yes, but so the tournament will obviously from 5 till 9:30. This has been going on for the last few years, where we have people from the white communities, English communities, from Asian, from black, from different communities who will come together and play and together, because the idea is to understand and build the bridges as well. So my experience of going to Srebrenica was basically it was an eye opener, and because I like yourself, I did obviously I have seen the images of people getting slaughtered and murdered and all that, but unless you see yourself, you're not going to appreciate it. We went to Sarajevo, which was under siege for 2.5 years, and people was starving to death basically. All the supply was cut off. People had to dig the tunnels to get some essential supplies, and the whole scenario is quite horrific, because everybody was living as part of one integrated community, and there were Bosnians, there were Croats, Serbians, living as one community, and suddenly they turn against each other because of the political motives, because the Serbia wanted to create a greater Serbia. Serbians, because after the fall of Yugoslavia, and the Serbs wanted to create a greater Serbia, so they wanted more land, and so they stirred up the racial hatred, and they spread the propagandas, rumors against the other community, particularly the Muslims, and overnight, when we went to Bosnia, we heard stories from some people that they were very good friends with Christian and Catholics, and they're living like a family. But overnight, Christians and the other community, they disappeared from Sarajevo, and the next thing they know, the whole city was under siege, you see. And so there are common factors. If you look in history, before any genocide takes place, that there is these type of things happen.
Hatred is fermented.
Hatred is unfortunately.
I mean, coming back to Brother Riyadh, obviously you were there at that time. You must have been young. Yeah. But here, as Javed says, people living together, they were like one big happy family. They may have come from different ethnic communities, different faith communities, but they were actually very happy with each other. How can a human change so quickly? And you witnessed the worst atrocities of that happening, the impact of that. What happened? I mean, I know Javed said it was political, and there were some politicians who wanted to create this greater Serbia. But what's the important lesson that we need to learn, as Javed says?
Yeah, as a young man at the time, I didn't really pay much attention to what was going on. 17-year-old, I've noticed things are going on in the background, but the people of my generation, we thought it's gonna pass. It's gonna maybe something's gonna
So how did it start?
So we could see the nationalism building up. After the fall of Yugoslavia, the country that was sort of all together, with all the nations living together, and the idea under communism, we're all equal, there's no nationalism, religion is something that you sort of do in your comfort of your own home. So the idea was pushed as far as it could go by the end of 90s, and then the nationalism sort of sprung back up, and new sort of forces started to appear. And like Javed was saying, they wanted greater Serbia, greater Croatia, with Muslims and Bosnians being stuck in the middle, not really knowing which way to go, just sort of wanting peace and to live, to be left alone. But no, it wasn't to be. They already decided that this is going to be a country that's to be divided, and sort of starting to sort of prepare for genocide, starting to prepare for ethnic cleansing, creating stories about people, about Muslims are terrorists.
And do you see parallels to what's happening in the UK at the moment?
We do see some parallels. Having lived through it, the alienation, the rise of nationalism, the left wing sort of rhetoric, it's quite similar and scary as far as we concerned, because we lived through it and we've seen it, so how quickly it can turn in a way that's quite horrific.
I mean, although we're focusing on the remembering Srebrenica here, brothers and sisters, we have to remember that thousands of other people in that part of the region, mainly Muslims and others, but mainly Muslims, were systematically killed and murdered. I mean, Srebrenica is a point in time at a particular moment where, as Brother Riyadh says, 8,300 more than that actually were killed in one sort of genocide attempt. But others in other parts of Bosnia also suffered really badly, and there were some horrific stories that emerged over the time. And if you've not seen this before, or aware of what happened in truth, I would strongly urge that you go online and check out some of the information particularly from the Remembering Srebrenica initiative, it covers the whole of the conflict as well, doesn't it?
Yes.
So I mean, obviously you went there, and you say you witnessed it, you saw how it was, you know, and how does it? I mean, you take groups of people, because I know Remembering Srebrenica annually takes people there, young people as well.
Yeah. See,
how are they affected when they see it, like you?
The Remembering Srebrenica, they organized a number of delegations throughout the year, and I was lucky enough to be invited to join one of them. In our group, we had Hindu, Manoj Joshi Saab, we had a Sikh, we had English Christians, different communities are coming together, and basically when we went to the concentration camp in Srebrenica, which was under the protection of United Nations, okay, and then when we looked at the scene there, and when we watched the video of what's been happening there, and people had tears in the eyes, even non-Muslim people, when they saw that, and they went to the graveyard where the thousands of bodies are buried, you see, and just outside the graveyard there was a little shop, now which was run by the mother of one of the martyrs, or one of the person killed during the conflict. Okay, and just outside the grave, and obviously she was selling a lot of novelties and things which people buy from that just to make a living, and also to remember and keep an eye on the graveyard as well. Okay, and so when you listen to the story from those people whose families have been affected, and they witnessed their sons being killed, and the husband being killed, it is very, very emotional.
It must be harrowing.
It's very, very, and there are a lot of museums there. For example, we went to some museums in Sarajevo, and we looked at some of the history, and when you look at some of the pictures and photos of dead bodies, and then we went to the Tuzla, where they found the bones of people 10 years after, and they're still finding as well, identifying the remains of the people who were killed at that time. So they found tens of thousands of bodies after the conflict as well. So this 8,000 figure is not the only figure.
That's what I'm saying. 8,000 is in one town.
Is in one town. At that time, they identified 8,300 people were killed. Okay, but there are many more thousand people who were killed, not just in
I think the figure is around 200,000. So I saw somewhere.
Figures vary according to sources, but it's around.
So the whole experience, I mean, to be honest, is very emotional, and also you can learn a lot from there. Like you were discussing earlier on, the signs of this thing, it doesn't happen overnight, unfortunately. The genocide takes time, and how the politicians and the media, and how they provoke the communities, how they promote the nationalism, how they promote the patriarchy and all that. So it takes time to build up, you see. And unfortunately, we can see some of the signs in the society. One of the speakers on Monday saying that 10 symptoms or 10 signs of genocide, and England is on the number 3 at the moment. Okay, so and I can't see it getting any better because of all these right-wing politicians coming into power as well. The chances are that things will
going to get worse.
Unless we take some actions. So we need to be more proactive as a community. We need to be more proactive, and we need to educate our young children as well. And therefore, going to Bosnia, taking them, rather than taking them anywhere else, I think everybody should at least visit the Bosnia, show them history. Because don't forget, the Bosnian and the Serbian and Croatian, they are one community.
Yes.
If you see somebody in the street, you can't tell the difference. Who's a Bosnian, who's a Serbian, who's a Croat. With us, we're different communities. We can see from miles away that different color, different nationality, different characteristics, and all that. So therefore, we are very easy identifiable, and whereas in Bosnia. It wasn't.
So you couldn't tell the difference.
You couldn't tell the difference, and to be honest, and the very integrated community, because a lot of people were drinking. Some people still drinking there as well. They're very Western culture, okay, and part and partial of the whole community. But whereas us in this country, obviously we have, we have taken a bit more conservative approach. We're more religious. So we have mosques building up and everything, and so we are living in one community, and so therefore the chances are.
I mean, obviously you talked about the lessons to be learned from Bosnia, and things don't happen overnight. They sort of slowly ferment, and then get to the stage where we saw these atrocities come in. But I mean, I think the lady you're talking about, who's has that little shop outside the
Yes.
Kabristan,
Yeah.
you know, the cemetery.
Yes.
I think she's going to be in Huddersfield tomorrow
Is she?
evening.
Oh.
I mean, these every town, as I
Yes.
said earlier, is having some sort of event to remember the victims of Srebrenica, and there's one in Huddersfield tomorrow evening at the university. And she, I think, is coming, and she's going to be speaking there. So anybody who wants to live locally, who wants to,
Yes.
please go on the website. I think it's Eventbrite. You can register and you can, you know, come there. I'm going to be there, inshallah, as well. I mean, coming back, Brother Iyam, obviously this happened within just Srebrenica, but in other parts of Bosnia, there were people killed, women raped, children, you know, abused. I mean, there's some horrific stories of what happened. You know, can you, I mean, for people from Bosnia who came here, have you been back, and do you go back regularly, or?
Yeah, we go back every year. Situation is much better now. Obviously,
Right.
everything's calmed down. Brother Javed's saying the tourism has picked up. A lot of tourists are coming from the Middle East, Turkey, even from Western Europe. We've built up quite a large diaspora community, people living across Western Europe and America, etc. So in the summer holidays, thousands of people flock back to their home country. But yeah, some of the incidents, some of the conflicts that we lived through, we're having to leave our hometown, you know, and then, you know, we were loaded up on cattle wagons, basically on trucks. And as a final send-off, they waited outside of town with machine guns, and they were just shooting relentlessly across these cattle wagons, killing people inside the canvas without even looking who it is.
I mean, some of the images I saw were, you know, men having to dig the graves, and then they were stood up in front of the graves, and they were shot, so they fell in. I mean, this is how bad things were in those. And my problem with our community is that a lot of our people don't remember that, right? Particularly people from the Asian subcontinent. I mean, we think, you know, it didn't happen to our people. We think it's happened to somebody else.
Yes.
And that is something that this whole initiative is to remind people. Now, how much work is happening in our schools? I mean, there's a lot of work happening around the Holocaust Memorial Day and the Holocaust itself. This is something similar to try and make sure that it remains in the consciousness of the people in this country, and particularly, you know, those people who are policymakers. How much work is happening in schools to remind young people about what happened not that many years ago?
Yes.
You know, not far away from where we are.
I mean, there is work taking place in schools, but it's not at that level it should be. There is a program called Susumad, Speak Up, Stand Up, Make a Difference. It's been piloted in a number of schools where young people get involved in a lot of activities, and including Srebrenica, including Holocaust and various other atrocities around the world as well.
Well, it's important to remember the Holocaust.
Yes, it is.
I'm saying it has to be important.
Yeah.
We have to remember the victims of the Nazi atrocities.
But unfortunately, you see, nothing of this type is happening in masjids.
Right.
You see, and the masjids and madrasas, where a lot of, I mean, I would think 80% of children attend every evening or weekend. You see, and there's a big potential, something to be done in masjid and madrasas as well.
I was going to come to the madrasas.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I've not come across any masjid or madrasa in Bradford or anywhere else, you see, which actually teaching children.
Is that because we in the Asian community see ourselves as being apart and different, so it doesn't affect us?
I think
that's you're an educationist.
Yeah.
What
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons, and I think second reason is people don't understand the significance of this issue. You see, and a lot of people have no understanding, because it happened 25 years ago, 25 years ago, and a lot of younger generation will not understand what happened at that time. There will be some people who may have some memories, but I think people don't understand the significance and what happened, and also the lesson to be learned as well, and how we can improve on that. And I think that's what this charity is doing good work in terms of highlighting the issue, and it's got the backing from the government, from the European Union, from all the most of the European Council as well, and so it's at least it's highlighting the issue, because just imagine if this charity wasn't in existence, nobody would have known this Memorial Week. You see, the only reason the events are taking place because of this work of the charity, and because they're emphasizing the importance. So all the authorities around the country, they have to show that they're doing something about it. So at least some message getting out. I mean, we had an event on on Monday in Bradford City Hall, 100 people turned up, you see. And so hopefully some of these people will go back and spread the message to other people as well. And the idea is that the message gets to everybody and everybody understand the importance and significance of these events.
In masjids, for example, Hayyan Baba, who's one of the colleagues working, remember in Srebrenica, sent me the information last week, and I passed it to our Imam, and he read the statements out, some of the khutbah out, and he actually talked about what happened in in Srebrenica, and it reminded people that we must not forget. Is that happening in your opinion, sort of across the board, or is something that we need to remind people?
I think, well, I mean, we need to is remind people. A lot of younger generation imams will understand because most of the material is printed in English,
right,
and so they will understand the significance and importance. But a lot of older imams will not understand that, and so they will find it difficult to convey the message to the audience.
Right.
Okay, they might be talking about incidents happened 1500 years ago, 1400 years ago, but this only happened 24 years ago.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
So we need to keep some emphasis and importance on this issue as well, and this is something you relate to. It's not too far away. I mean, Bosnia, it's only a couple of hours.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Just around the
it's only
other side of the channel.
Yeah, it's a 2 hours flight from here. You see,
yes,
and it's not expensive to get there as well. So people go to holiday in another part of Malaysia, Indonesia, and all that. But I think everybody should take the children, at least visit there and see what happened there and learn
let
from
me
it.
just pick up on that. I mean, say I want to go there.
Yes.
Yeah.
How easy is it to get there? And I mean, I'm getting old. I'm lazy. I need some comforts in my life a little bit. So have you got the infrastructure and the facilities for people to go there and visit? I mean, I know I've been on the government's advisory body where we pushed for this initiative with IQRA and others. And by the grace of Allah, the government finally accepted it, and Waqar Azmi worked extremely hard, and we have to congratulate him that it was his efforts with others that we've got to this stage. But if any of our viewers want to, I know many people have gone.
Yeah.
If any of our viewers want to go, what are the logistics? I mean, do we have hotel facilities?
Absolutely, yeah.
Everything?
A lot of people have been contacting me personally recently this year.
Right.
They were going for their summer holidays. They're booking their own flights. Infrastructure is absolutely there. The hotels are coming up. A lot of, like I was saying earlier, a lot of people from the Middle East that come in, not just for holidays. They're investing and they, purchasing properties and doing investments of business kind. So infrastructure is there. There's a lot to see, not just in the sense of visiting these memorial centres. There's a lot of natural beauty and rivers, lakes, mountains, and
I'm sure it's a beautiful country.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. As soon as you get out of Sarajevo, I mean, it's like going to Kashmir and beautiful.
Sure. Yeah.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, coming back to the conflict and the after effects of the conflict, which has been traumatic. I mean, definitely on the people who were, the victims of it, even people who witnessed it from afar. But how are the victims now recovering from this absolutely horrific event that took place in our history? I mean, obviously they're traumatized. There's issues around psychological counselling, giving them support, etc. What are the needs of the people there? I mean, the economy is suffered. The economy is not as robust as it used to be.
Yeah.
So what are the needs? How can our viewers help? I mean, by going there, obviously they can help because they're helping the economy by going and visiting Bosnia. But what else can they do to help? I mean, there's lots of women, mothers and children, orphans left there because the husbands were killed.
That's right, yeah. Unfortunately, the wounds are still fresh. There's still a lot of charities involved, helping with orphans, helping mothers survive, helping with children of orphans and their education. That's an ongoing project that could be seen in Sarajevo and major cities. But like you said, I think the biggest achievement would be to sort of go down to Srebrenica, and Javis witnessed this himself. When the mothers are there and they see people coming and breaking down and offering their prayers for their husbands and children, this is probably the biggest sort of reward and that anyone can do to offer to these survivors and their families.
Getting to Bosnia is not difficult. You don't need a visa. They will give you a visa at the airport, and it's pretty easy to fly from Leeds Bradford, from Manchester, and get there. And it's not expensive to fly there as well, and it's a beautiful place to visit. But the only difficult, which we witnessed that, despite 24 years on from the conflict, the community is still quite divided there.
Right.
Okay, and there are schools which are Muslim schools,
yes,
and there are schools
there's still some attempt to continue to divide
the communities, and also the politicians, they're failing to accept that there was a genocide in Bosnia. Okay, and so I think from my experience looking at it, the division is still there, you see, for Muslims and non-Muslims, and the chances are there could be something happening in the future as well, if no initiative has been taken to bring the communities together. And unfortunately, so far my experience was that despite all that, the good thing which I witnessed was that despite all that, the Bosnian Muslims, they want to move on and they want to live a life, and there's no anger in them to do the retaliation, okay, and they want to just live a peaceful life, you see. But on the other side, there are other communities who are still not accepting this.
So there's a denial.
There's denial.
And the Serbs are still denying that this genocide took place. The Russians are still denying that.
Well, Russian vetoed it.
Yeah, they vetoed in the UN to say
Russian,
that, that this genocide took place. But I will come back to this point about the community's response and how community integrated or not. And I think that is a fascinating issue here, that you talked about the communities living cheek by cheek together. Your neighbor could be, a Christian, or could be a Croat or a Serb, or a non-practicing person, and you lived like brothers and sisters, and then suddenly everything just turned, and that's this nationalism which was fermented.
Yeah, it like Javed was saying, steps to complete genocide. So it was an alienation of community, demonizing people for no particular reason. As we were brought up, we didn't know any different. We were brought up to believe that we were all brothers and sisters, we're all equal. And then slowly these things started sort of creeping in. Look at these Muslims. Although we are all, like we mentioned earlier, indigenous, population of that land. We didn't come from anywhere. We're not different color.
It was your motherland.
Yeah, our motherland. We didn't come from elsewhere. We are indigenous to that land. Yes, we became Muslims 500 years ago, but this was somewhere where we intended to stay, and where our ancestors were living and intending to remain in that in that land. So, it was sort of the rhetoric type of look at these Muslims. If you don't like it here, we'll put signs up, you'll go down to, towards Turkey, this is where your ancestors came from.
This is where you belong.
Yeah, this is where you belong, leave this land, this sort of religion doesn't belong in Europe, we're building up shield here to protect Europe. This was one of the excuses that perpetrators were saying. You don't know what you're going to be dealing with in years to come if we don't stop it here. And, slowly after that.
So this fear of Muslims and what the Muslims
are
doing in the country, which is something similar, as Javed says, we're seeing signs of that in this country as well.
Well, at that time, the fear was created in people's mind that Muslims are going to take over Europe and they're going to take over the country, and so as a result of that, developed the nationalism in people, and obviously, and basically one of the person we spoke to, Hassan, he was called. He was one of the hosts in our trip to Sarajevo. Now he was telling us that the people who were from different religion, they disappeared overnight,
right,
before the siege took place. So during the daytime they were all talking to each other, they're like normal. Overnight something happened, they disappeared. Okay.
Were they forewarned or something?
So I think that there must be some sort of plan in place, you see.
So conspiracy.
And then after that the whole city was sieged, and so they had no supply for 2.5 years.
Right.
Okay. And people had to dig tunnels.
This is the siege of Sarajevo, which is very well known in history. Yes.
Okay. And people had no supply, and people had to dig tunnels for quite long, to get the medical supplies and get some essential facilities.
And how do you think? Let's be brutally honest here. You're an Asian guy from Pakistan. I'm an Asian guy I don't consider myself from the Asian subcontinent, although my grandfather was. I come from Africa.
Right.
All right. And I have to apologize on behalf of my community, because I don't think we responded to the way we should have responded. Do you feel something similar?
Yes.
And do you think we're still not responding to the way we should?
Yes.
Because do we see Bosnians, Albanians, others as different? They're not proper, proper Muslims, and therefore we are proper.
To be honest, I mean, one of the criticism I have of my community, we're too busy fighting among ourselves. There's too much infighting around communities,
right.
Whether you are a Sunni or a Deobandi or a Shia, whatever you are, you see, and then you take yourself away from the issues which are affecting the community as a whole, you see.
Right.
Okay, we have not got any platform where we can bring everybody together. We can't have Eid on the same day. We can't start Ramadan on the same day. We can't even have a Ramadan timetable.
That's another subject area, actually.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of how we welcome our Bosnian brothers and sisters,
in terms of
we're going to be going for a break very soon.
Okay.
Now I want to come and talk, because in the last part what I want to talk about is what lessons do we need to learn from what happened to our brothers and sisters in Bosnia for the UK and what is happening at this moment in this country.
Right.
So I'll come to that in a minute, because so we're going to go for a break. I hope you found this so far interesting and illuminating. Inshallah, we'll be back with you soon. In the meantime, take care. Make yourself a tea and coffee or faluda or sharbat or whatever it is you enjoy. And inshallah, we'll be back with you soon. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.